saying, I say, oh my God, it's almost like they're addicted to this stuff. Why don't you spend time trying to make sure that these brothers are out of jail? I mean, all these black revolutionaries folk on the radio, it look like so many of them are on Jimmy Dore's plantation, but we won't get into all of that right now. I say, why don't you spend time making sure Mumia is free? That's what we've been trying to do for 35, 40 years. Where's your work? Where's your sacrifice?
And by the way, he's talking about the folks over at the Revolutionary Blackout Network, Nick and CJ specifically, who have just been going super, super hard on Cornel West lately, devoting multiple live streams to attacking him and, undermining him and going after basically everything he does at this point. Some of which is fair. Like I said, we talked about the Alexei Navalny tweet. Probably wasn't the best look for Cornel West. He definitely deserved criticism for that. But they've been devoting multiple live streams just to roasting him and going after him for everything at this point, despite the fact that he was going on their show every month just a few months ago. So I do agree with a lot of his criticisms of RBN, and specifically the fact that RBN still to this day won't come out here and say fuck Jimmy Dore, but they'll do 10 live streams saying fuck Cornel West. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
this has to come out. I'm sorry, but I have to ask you, Gavin, does it not feel like he's reaping what he sowed? You play with fire, you get burned. How obvious was it to the rest of the political left online that what was going on with the Jimmy Dore show and the RBN and the Do Dissidents and the Couch Potato Network and Jackson Hinkle and all of these guys Russell Brand, Tucker Carlson's actually really based now. Oh yeah, maybe these are the guys that I should be building my lefty insurgent campaign around. Dude, I'm sorry, be mad. That was a mistake by you. You were the one that was like, oh yeah, this guy seems trustworthy. Oh yeah, this guy seems like he's doing great work. What the fuck were you looking at? You were you bought exactly what you want to call out Jimmy Dore. Hey, Cornel, who introduced you to Nick Branda, the guy that you thought should run your fucking campaign? He takes no responsibility for fuck all, man. That's not presidential. All he's doing is throwing mud at everybody else. Yeah, I'm sorry. A fucking dude in Kansas City that doesn't even make a splash in local politics at all. And I'm not talking about myself, though that would also describe me. I'm sorry. That guy can't be the top of your mind when you're running for president. You know what I mean? Nick is irrelevant in Kansas City. Wait, you know what I mean? Just like I'm irrelevant in Kansas City. I don't they're gonna get on the phone. Quinn Lucas blocked me on Twitter. We don't have fuck all to say. Every time we try and ratio somebody locally, they just block us on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? So you take a guy like RBN and you're like, oh yeah, man. Blah, blah, blah. What are you talking about, dude? These were the people that you were getting all your talking points from 6 months ago. Where is your critical assessment of their media fucking fraudulence before you decide to get in bed with them?
Oh, dude, I think you're 100% correct. And we could have told Dr. West that from the beginning.
We did on air.
Yeah, we did. And maybe if he'd surrounded himself with people other than yes men, that would have become obvious. But yeah, I mean, obviously those guys were going to turn on him as soon as it was convenient, as soon as it would have resulted in a few more clicks and a few extra dollar signs. They don't give a fuck. They have no loyalty whatsoever. Literally, there's no one other than Jimmy Dore with. They won't happily and proudly burn the bridge for the sake of 10 extra viewers. 100%.
Your reflection. What kind of hits are you taking? What kind of burdens are you bearing? Or what are you doing? Are you just playing a game? Well, you see, that's just sad, man. It's a sad thing. That doesn't mean that they're demons. It just means that I just hope and wish that they reach a point in their lives where they get beyond the little pettiness and actually become substantive, genuine revolutionaries, loving the people, focusing on the people in such a way that they are the fundamental.
Up until we could reduce it to weeks ago. Jimmy Dore had a pinned praising message from Cornel West about how he was the fighter, about how he was the crusader, about how he was speaking truth to power, that he was doing what corporate media would not. What it sounds like, bro. And again, I'm like, this is embarrassing for him, guys. It's kind of humiliating. It shows that the left is in a bad way right now, electorally. He's just mad that they're not supporting him the way that he wants them to. it wasn't really about, oh, you're not advocating about the freedom of Mumia Abu-Jamal enough. You're not arguing for the liberation of Leonard Peltier enough. It wasn't weeks ago when, months and months, you'd gone on the show multiple times when it was all clear as day to everybody else what he was up to. This is after COVID, when he lied and spread all kinds of conspiracies and how he was really skeptical about these vaccines, but not hydroxychloroquine. Which, if you guys don't know, I'm a bartender, so I knew how fucking dumb as rocks this was. That's the shit that's in tonic water. Quinine, they used to try and use it to treat fucking malaria back in the day. But guess what? Doesn't treat your fucking COVID. And anybody who's not a fucking moron could have told you that. But that wasn't enough for the straw to break the camel's back. With Cornel West support, nah, whatever. We can agree to be different. Jimmy's a fighter. He's a truth teller, even though that predominantly impacted the poorest among us. COVID-19 predominantly massacred the poorest among us. And the anti-vax was most susceptible to people who were, for legitimate reasons, already skeptical of the United States. So Jimmy did a fucking horrible thing there. Dr. West has no problem with it. No problem with it. He basically makes the case for Putin based, blah, 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 Tucker Carlson based. That's not the final straw for Cornel West, even though he knows how evil those people are, right? He's like, oh, well, Jimmy and I have a different perspective on that. The hard line in the sand when he's willing to say, fuck it all, I'm burning it down, is because they didn't support his presidential campaign the way he wanted them to. That's all that it burns down to.
So true. Yeah, 100%. He said, it always is up for debate, in my opinion, like how much Cornel West has been paying attention to all this stuff. Like that's the conversation we had around the People's Party, for example, is like, I really hope Cornel West was actually ignorant to some of this information before he agreed to associate with this like known grifting predator, this alleged rapist, Nick Brana, because if it wasn't ignorance, yeah, it basically seems like he was just willing to put all that aside. And same with all of those very valid criticisms you've made of Jimmy Dore and his orbiters, people like Nick and CJ on RBN, who of course just regurgitate whatever garbage that Jimmy wants them to, from the COVID stuff to the Putin stuff. And yeah, none of it is in line with Dr. West's values, but he didn't seem to have an issue with any of it until they turned on him, until they started making content going after him. They didn't have a problem with them smearing a bunch of other, lefty allies and comrades. So I do have to wonder how much Cornel West is aware of all that stuff. Obviously, he's a busy guy. He probably doesn't watch as much YouTube as us, so he might not be aware of all of the ins and outs of the drama between
You think he has to do his homework, dude. He tried to build this whole campaign around these people, and now he wants to admonish them about not being serious revolutionaries. I'm sorry. What does that make you, pal? These were the recruits that you called right from jump. These were the guys that you said, hey, man, let's get the band back together and let's run for office. And we said, oh, we love you, Dr. West. And a lot of people said, listen, man, you have a great legacy. And boy, would we love to get our hands on that for the left to move the ball forward, at least in terms of rhetoric right now. Overton Window's not doing great. Let's go ahead and shove it a little bit. We love that for you, but you got to go into the Green Party, because those are the serious people and not the online dirtbag idiots that will just throw you to the wolves so that they can get clicks from right-wingers who wanted to see you fail anyways. Did not listen to us. He instead said, I am going to run as an independent so that these people cannot reach me. He's now, going on his, he's actually, excuse me, he founded his own Justice for All party. We've lamented on their graphic design skills, but it's about par for the course with their political acumen at this moment. And now he's doing the whole it's everybody's fault but mine tour. I mean, this campaign's all but over now. This campaign is all but over. And as soon as anybody takes this guy seriously, they'll just start pulling up all the footage of him bitching and moaning. It's so unpresidential.
Focus of your work, not these little buzzes that go round and around. It's all about market. It's all about money. It's all about Tucker Carlson got 200 million, so he's the big man. No, Tucker is still a white supremacist who conforms to neo-fascist sensibilities. I don't care how many he has on his podcast. But if it's just about size, and here Paul Street, who I have such great respect for, he made the point with tremendous power. He said, I thought independent media was going to be independent. No, independent media too often, there's some good ones, but too often, they're just trying to make money too. And they're going with the big money. They're going with the big markets. They're going with those who have the most eyeballs. Where's the integrity? And then you're going to attack other people's integrity.
And again, those are all fair criticisms, but you did take money from Harlan Crow, dude. Can you really go after other people's integrity as far as the way they make money and the way they conduct business when you're taking money from a right-wing billionaire with a Nazi art collection in order to fund your very unserious campaign? Like, again, I agree with your criticism. I think you're 100% on point, but you've kind of sacrificed some of the moral high ground in making these arguments, just given the way you run your own campaign, who you've associated with from Nick Brana.
I said only some of the moral high ground, only some of it. Again, I point out the fact that he wants to take shots at Jimmy Dore right now and the people who have fallen under Tucker Carlson's spell. Those are the people you hired to launch your presidential campaign 6 months ago. I don't want to hear it. You did no homework. There was like anybody with eyes could tell you that Jimmy Dore was going down the white supremacist rabbit hole.
Please, it's a sad situation. So I said, let me talk to my brother Tim, just to be able to reflect on this thing. Because I do stand corrected if I'm wrong. I acknowledge that. But I can tell you one thing, too, that's when folks start coming at your loved ones, I get very upset. Very upset.
Well, Dr. West, I'm glad you were able to express how you really feel, brother, because that's important for you to keep it real with the audience. Let them know. I just want to thank you for choosing this platform to have this conversation.
I'm really excited to hear some pushback from Tim Black because there's a lot to flesh out there. I'm really excited for him to ask for some receipts, for some follow-up. I'm super excited. I know I've had a great conversation with Tim Black. He's a serious fucking guy. I'm super stoked for him to say, you sure presented a lot of information there. I want to start to unpack all of it. Now, you mentioned that you've been able, you had your trust violated by Jill Stein. Could you talk a little bit about the impetus for that, or how about the aspersions you made towards Peter Dow, or channels you've once roundly celebrated and only very recently have changed your tune on, like the Jimmy Dore show, which you gave lavish praise to for years and years.
Continued to legitimize after many credible people were trying to sound the alarm. Yeah.
So I'm sure Tim will ask him about all that.
Brother, only thing I really want to ask, well, to open it up, I want to say, do you support Nazis and white supremacists? And I know that's crazy to ask that question. I almost can't get it past my teeth, right?
So now we know why he went on the Tim Black show. Now we know why he went on the Tim Black show. Sorry, Tim, you didn't ask him a single fucking tough question. Oh, do you hate? No, let's invite him on for a game of wiffle ball where we'll fawning praise him, the guy that has no chance of winning the presidential election. Let him besmirch other hardworking leftists, and then let him get off scot-free. No pushback. That sounds great. I'm sure he'll come back on a lot of times.
Putin's plantation, say it. If you're going to be on Iran's plantation, then say it. If you're going to be on Putin's plantation, say it. We're already critical of those who's on Biden's plantation. We're critical of those who's on Apex plantation. But get off the plantation. The aim is not to get off one plantation and get on another plantation. Get off Jimmy Dore's plantation. Think for yourself. If he's disrespecting a black man, can you say it on your show? No, they can't say it on their show. Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Oh, I see.
Well, without Jimmy Dore, nobody would know who these people are.
That's true. And what the fuck did we say when he went on Jimmy Dore show? We said this is appalling. We had one of the former writers, one of the people who actually used to make the Jimmy Dore show funny back in the day, if you could believe it. Once was. We had Ron Placone on here, and he said that it was I can't remember his direct quote. Humiliating, embarrassing. It was something bad. He said it felt terrible. I believe he was very uncomfortable with how it went out because it was so obviously like the racial tone was bad. Like he didn't have any respect for this guy. It was big, like Skip Bayless, like white guy energy talking to. I was like, oh, I hate this. You know what I mean? That's the energy he gave off, and he was like super caustic and shitty, and there's a way that you challenge somebody like Cornel West, something that we were desperate for Tim Black to do, but he didn't. And there's a way that you're like a huge dickhead. Jimmy was a huge dickhead. We made a whole video about it, talking about how, of course, RBN's not going to say anything about it because they have to eat from that trough, basically, at the end of the day. And when they have bickered, guys, they've bickered on the fringes, on the margins, and it's already taken a huge bite out of their channel. If you go look at RBN now, they don't do as well as they used to. That's why Sabby's branched off to do more of her own racketeering on her own.
Interesting. Oh, I see.
Well, without Jimmy Dore, nobody would know who these people are. And every couple months, they got to have them come on just so people remember that they even exist. So that goes for the whole life.
Unfortunately, what Tim Black is leaving out is that it's not just thanks to Jimmy Dore that they've been legitimized. It's also thanks to Cornel West. He gets none of the blame for elevating these absolute fools, these absolute morons who Zach and I, we're not fucking Cornel West. And we did tell you guys, 2 years ago, now that these people were fucking snakes in the grass.
Let
They
me
were
say this.
unserious.
Let me say this, Gavin, because I'm going to give you some props. In the early stages of the Vanguard, I was incredibly caustic. I didn't fuck with anybody besides our show. I would just smited any other channel for success for the Vanguard. I'll be real. We find this show called Sabby Sabs. She has like less than 1,000 subscribers, but Gavin likes what she has to say. And we can tell that she's still falling for the trap where you pay these like bullshit companies to promote your video when really you just get like 1,000 bot watches from like Venezuela on a map. And if you do it for too long, then they'll flag your YouTube channel and you won't be able to grow. That's what Sabby was doing when Gavin and I first came across her content. I want everybody to know how long we've been in this game. Okay, we've been about it all before everybody else. Okay, so for Sabby to act like, oh, these guys are just fucking hateful towards me. No, fuck that. We gave her every fucking chance. Gavin's like, do you want to have this lady on? It'd be cool to like give her the leg up. I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't know. I like just doing the show together. We sometimes, we already have a couple of other people that come on the show, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, it'll be cool. I told her she can come on. I'm like, all right, bet. We have a good conversation with Sabby. Over the next couple of years, she joins the Revolutionary Blackout Network. We had another homie, Kamali Rose. He joined the Revolutionary Blackout Network for like 30 seconds before he was like, oh, this is a fucking hoax, folks. I'm getting the far shit from here. I actually care about Black liberation, right? So we watched that whole thing unravel. We used to have Nick on our show, right? We used to like, we've had many members of the RBN crew on our show, right? We were like, it was part of our nebulous, right? But then they slowly but surely were never able to build a backbone and stand up to Jimmy Dore after he obviously left the left, right? After he started to play us all. And that was when the bridge burned. And then one time I think I went on air and we said something about how like Sabby, knows where her bread is buttered, and she blocked us on Twitter and never hit us up again. I'm like, well, that makes sense. Then
She got so mad that we were just like honest.
Oh yeah, we knew exactly what she was doing. I was like, bro, it's so obvious if you do this for a living. I know all you have to do is make this topic. And also, dude,
even after her interview with Nick Brana, where she totally revealed that he's a fucking psychopathic predator, she still kept doing the Jimmy Dore dance.
And she did the exact formula that we had. Not that we can bitch about it because it's like, whatever, it's YouTube. This is what people do. But she used to literally wait until we would go live and then steal our fucking headline topics, guys. This is where Sabby was at in her career. And people want to act like she's all this like, oh, she's the real serious one from RBN. No, she's not, bro. No, she's not. Yeah. So anyway, we've warned about all that entire network for a long time. It was a publicly available, and this was when Cornel West was lauding them and congratulating them for the real serious work that they were doing, and praising Jimmy Dore for being a truth teller when it was so hard to be a truth teller. Now it's all coming back. It's all coming back.
Yeah, 100%. We've been warning you guys for 2 years at least now about the real nature of these grifting losers, and the fact that they're not serious about revolutionary activism, and that they'll just claim whatever their whatever position makes them the most money is the actual leftist position, whether that's worshiping at the altar of Vladimir Putin, a war criminal, or pretending like vaccines lead to autism, which is of course an incredibly debunked and ableist myth that is continually
autistic people should just be dead.
Yeah,
let's take care of the ADHDers, the neurodivergents. We want to clean France and America. Nah, fuck Jimmy Dore, not me.
Out of them. But Dr. West, back to Nelvani, I got to ask you, brother.
Yes.
They say he's a Nazi. They say he's a white supremacist. How do you feel about him? What? Like, because I'm not going to pretend to know much about the guy, other than I know he was jailed. I know
way to fortify yourself, Tim.
And I know he died in jail in the penal colony. And we don't know exactly what the circumstances were at the moment. But this is what set it off. You said, okay, this man died, and you said, he died in a political. He was a political prisoner in your eyes. They say he wasn't. If he's a neo-Nazi or white supremacist, do you think he was? And if so, would that at all change your tweet or whatever?
Well, one thing is, though, brother, here's a fascinating conversation to have, that I don't think anybody ought to be falsely accused and murdered by the state based on any ideology they have. I don't think a Klan member ought to be falsely accused and killed by the U.S. government. I don't believe in just eliminating people just because they're full of hatred at all. They got rights too, and if they got members of their family, many of whom not even Klansmen. So
Can we pause it one more time?
All of them and act as if.
I just want to remind everybody that the goalpost immediately moved and Tim didn't check him on it, right? So, of course, Tim said to me, I don't know what's going on, man. We had just had you on the show to talk about this specific issue, but I made sure to do zero homework on it, so I couldn't push back on you even if I wanted to. Okay, so we've got that established. And now he's going to move the goalpost away from people being mad that you put a neo-Nazi up in the same space as like legitimate American fucking political prisoners. And now you're like saying, well, should they be killed? Should they be? I don't think we should just kill anybody. And it's like, that's not what people are mad about. Nobody was saying that we shouldn't extrajudicially kill. That's actually the lefty position, Dr. West. All right. What's not the lefty position is taking a idiot piece of shit that got killed and memorializing him and valorizing him as if he was somebody who is living the same struggle as some of these legendary individuals that, you know, were mentioned in that tweet. That's what people were frustrated about. So you can't, oh, those people just wanted him dead. Like, that's not the argument anybody made. And it's ridiculous to immediately rush to that to defend your own argument, which is unsound.
If you have absolutely no concern of them, because see, when you start that kind of logic, and we've seen it over and over again, you see, you end up starting to demonize folk you disagree with. Next thing you know, you're demonizing each other. I mean, I wonder sometimes, even with people that claim to be together, sooner or later they're going to be at each other's throats because nobody agrees with everything all the time. So next thing you know,
that's your entire campaign. He's like, I don't trust anybody. They're all going to be out of it. Bro, that's you, pal. That's you, bruvy.
Start demonizing them. Next thing you know, well, maybe you ought to be eliminated. You wrong just as anybody else. Now, let's be very, very honest about this. Mumia Abu-Jamal is one of the great intellectuals, great freedom fighters, and spiritual healers.
That's why people don't want him compared to a white supremacist.
For those who are deeply concerned about what we didn't like the picture together, I can understand that juxtaposition and being upset about that. But people who know me and know my depth, the depth of my love and respect for Mumia, I know Mumia himself doesn't believe in just eliminating people based on what they believe and being falsely accused and murdered by the state. That's not Mumia Abu-Jamal at all. So the folk who claim to be speaking in his name, shame on them and shame on them trying to separate me from.
So if I make a eulogy for a political prisoner and I put him up with the likes of Alexei Navalny and like Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden and Qasem Soleimani, and I'm like, these were all men that were killed because the United States opposed what they had to say, would be like, hey man, that's inappropriate. That's not okay. Like, I don't believe anybody should be killed without fair fucking trial or persecution. Well, it's not exactly the company that we're trying to project this guy with. I guess if you really stretch it, we're all brothers and sisters in the human family, but I don't think that's what people want to think about when they think of people who were morally righteous and courageous and the people that the United States just whacked because yes, they were bad people, but no, they weren't. They shouldn't have been extrajudicially killed. Do you see how that's different? Like, this is the kind of thing that he's trying to like move the goalpost on. He's like trying, oh, do you believe in extrajudicial killing? No, none of us do. But that wasn't what we were pissed about. That wasn't why we were like, oh, this is obviously in poor taste.
From my brother. The same is true with H. Rat Brown, my brother, who's now at college. Same is true with Leonard Peltier and so forth. Same is true with the precious sister in Iran. It's, there's West again defending those figures at the State Department. Bump the State Department. The State Department has its own gangsterism. I'm not determined by them. I make my own decisions because I'm a free black man who has a moral sensibility and spiritual sentiments that I learned a long time ago, and I'll never apologize for it, ever. I will always have a moral concern about people who are falsely accused and who are murdered by the state. That is a fundamental bedrock view that I have of the world. Now, of course, I love Mumia more than others because I know we were in prison together. We sang together with James Conant and Brother Chris Hedges when we went there. Take a bullet for the brother. That's our connection. And so, at that point, I want to make that very clear. I think we made that clear in the second tweet that we made in terms of my deep love and respect for him. But it's interesting how folk would come up with anything in order to try to pit us apart when we're trying to focus on empowering the people and they trying to focus on keeping.
You've taken shots at half a dozen people.
Their reputation.
How long have we been watching this? 17 minutes and 42 seconds. I don't know if you're necessarily on the high ground for unifying the left. You've been like basically taking shots at everyone so far, but whatever.
Yeah, and it's one thing to take shots at people like Jimmy and RBN, who obviously have been just roasting the ever-living hell out of you and going after you for clicks and money, sometimes in good faith, sometimes in bad faith. But yeah, to throw Jill Stein, the Green Party, Peter Dow under the bus, despite the fact that they're all working pretty hard to keep it classy, at least publicly, as it relates to this entire debacle. Yeah, I do think it's unnecessary and it's unnecessarily divisive. Not that I normally pearl clutch about that stuff, but for someone who claims to care about the third party movement, there's not much acknowledgement of the fact that Dr. West's candidacy right now is actually counterproductive to the stated goals of the third party movement. With him and Dr. West both in the same race, pulling from each other and running on the exact same platform, it's actually, sorry, not Dr. West, yeah, Dr. Stein. It's actually going to result in a counterproductive campaign. The only thing that will happen is that the Green Party will get less percentage of the vote than they would otherwise. They'll have a harder time getting to 5% than they would otherwise. And yeah, Cornel West is doing nothing. He's not going to be on enough ballots to actually make the cut. And he's out here dissing Jill Stein and throwing shade at the Green Party without actually specifying what the issue is, only kind of vaguely casting aspersions at people for seemingly just telling him what he didn't want to hear.
Yeah, it's not a good look. I think this is about the end of the road for the Dr. West campaign. I don't even think that interview got very much engagement on the internet as far as like what you would hope for from a guy that's trying to mount a, third
Not even
party
7,000 views on YouTube.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, now we have moved this into like a fringe protest candidacy. It's not even going to reach the levels of like a Howie Hawkins Green Party 2020 COVID run. So I think it's just important for everybody to start, categorizing that differently. We all hoped and, really, crossed our fingers, put an ice cube under our pillow at night, whatever good luck charms you have. We all did that for hoping that this would carry us somewhere. It is not going to carry us anywhere. So we're going to hopefully get some questions answered by Jill Stein, see what plans they have to get to 5%, see if there's something that we can get excited about there.